Hi there, my name is Joe Meling with 23 Plus, and I'm going to be walking you through today step by step on how I tool this pattern. Now, if you want to get a hold of this pattern or want to see anything else that we have available, be sure to check out the website. It's 23plus.com, all spelled out, 23plus.com. And I'll put a link to that in the description so you get a chance to jump on and check that out. But let's head over to the marble, we'll get started and go through this start to finish. Now this pattern is going to be one of the two tooling options that's available in the Dovetail Spur Strap Project Pattern Pack. Now we're going to get the moisture right in the leather, and then I'm going to lay that pattern down and just start transferring that over onto the leather with a tracing stylus. It's just a ballpoint stylus that I have there. Now the pattern is going to be cut out after it's taped front and back. The purpose of taping that pattern is to protect it. It's going to keep it from drawing moisture from your leather so it doesn't get all wrinkled up and tear through when you start using your stylus. So as we get down towards the end here, I'm going to just make sure you get all of your lines with a good firm pressure on your stylus. Now I'm going to come back with a set of wing dividers set at 1/4 inch and get that outside border line. That way I know I got a nice crisp line, good and even on your edges, instead of trying to transfer that line from your pattern. Now it's time to get the swivel knife out and actually cut this pattern into your leather. It's important when you're running a knife to get smooth, even cuts. The foundation of your entire pattern is really being set when you draw your knife cuts. So you'll notice here I start with my border. Anytime I have a full cut-in border like that, I always start with those lines. That way, as I come back to start cutting this floral, I know that I'm not going to accidentally cut into my border where I want to put that stitch line at. Now I'm going to start with kind of my bigger space fillers like these flowers and some of the leaves, and then I'll work through all the vine work and continue cutting till I get all the lines in that pattern. Remember, it's more important that you be really smooth with your lines than you stay exactly on the line that you transferred. Sometimes that transfer line can be off a little bit. All right, it's time to get your maul out and start tapping on tools. This first tool that we're using is the bevel. Now the bevel that I'm using in this video is going to be an extra steep bevel. It's a checkered bevel to where you can still see that burnishing effect. Now what I mean by burnishing is the color being darker as I'm hitting that bevel, and that's just having your moisture content right as you're striking that bevel down. We're going to start and get the border all the way beveled first. Now the reason that I beveled those border lines first is the same reason why I cut them in first. It's just going to help me avoid accidentally beveling over into that border as I'm doing all these other lines that run right up to it. Getting smooth bevel lines can be one of the hardest things for beginners as they get started with their tooling. And I think that comes from a couple reasons. One being that their knife work might not be super smooth yet. And the smoother you have your knife work, the easier it's going to be to run a smooth bevel line. Now, as you get more experience and practice more, you get a little bit better at running a smooth bevel, mainly because you've practiced a lot and had to smooth up some lines that weren't super smooth to start with. So don't be impatient when you're working on your beveling. Take the time to go back over your lines as necessary and try to clean up any of those choppy marks. One little tip that I like is not to move that bevel too far as you hit. So I'll hit down with my maul and then just slide that bevel over a slight amount, not even 1/4 of the width of that bevel, and hit it again. As you do that and move through your pattern, it's going to be a lot easier to smooth out those bevel lines and start getting just a nice even look to your tooling. Now the direction that you bevel is going to be a really important part. Now hopefully you'll be able to follow along with this if you have your pattern and see exactly where those lines are. This next tool that I've moved on to is a vertical line thumbprint. And I'll use this running down my vines and start adding some shadowing in there and some shading. And you'll see I'll also use this in an open stump to help push the leather and create a ridge down the middle. By working from the outside of that stump and pushing up towards the center, I'm able to create that ridge in the middle and help bring not just some shadowing to the vine work, but start adding some texture in there as well. I'm going to use the same technique here on the flower as I start creating those ridges within the petals themselves. I like to fade that as I create those ridges and soften that space between them so you're not seeing hard tool lines. Next, I'm coming back with a small little lifter and just helping to pick those ridges up even more, and then getting down in the creases on the edge of those stumps where I have a little offshoot going. It's just going to help add that little extra bit of definition. Then following that, I have a little bit of a larger lifter. I actually use a smaller round bevel, and that works really great in place of a lifter. You can see the definition that gives and really helps that stand apart to where when you put your finish on there, even just an oil finish, or if you come with an antique, it's going to stand that out really well. Next couple tools go pretty quick, but the first one is a seed right on that flower stem, and then I'll come back with a small mule's foot. And I'm just going to hit this in a few spots, but right on where those stumps split off, I'm going to hit it about 3 times, fading those out, and then I'll also come in on that flower stem behind my seed. This next detail tool is a veiner. I'm going to use that in 3 spots. One being right here on the leaf to put the actual veins in. Then I'm also going to come by on my flower stem, really tip that tool, just get the edge on it to help get some curvature to that stem. The last part is going to be on this swirl, and I'm going to angle that up towards the center of that swirl as I come around. I'm going to take a little extra time with this flower center. Not only do I hit that center tool down there, but I'm going to come around that with a center liner, which has got vertical lines on it, and it's going to help create a little extra depth to that flower center. Now once I've mashed those petals down, I'm going to come back with my steep bevel and crisp those lines and sharpen them up, take them right back down to that flower center, and then hit that center one more time, giving me the depth that I really want in there. This might be my favorite part of tooling leather. It's coming back in with the decorative cuts. The purpose of a decorative cut is to help create flow and give a little extra detail to your tooling. So I'm going to come back in, I've gone through my flower, and I'm going to come through my vine work and just touch off a few extra points in there. Always fading those lines. You want to start your decorative cuts deep and fade them out to nothing as you pull them back. Fade those cuts together, but never cross your lines. Okay, my last step is going to be to come in and fill in my backgrounds. Now, some people might do this earlier in the tooling process just to help them distinguish between what's going to be foreground and background and let them keep track of where they're at as they're filling in their vine work. But I like to come in at the end with a bar grounder, so that's going to be having the seeds in a line on my tool, and I'm going to fan those out in the background spaces here, keeping them nice and even in a line as I go.